How's it going, MoshPit? I have one of those things known as a Pokemon battle for you. It is kind of a mixed, more relaxed, standard kind of thing. I was like, hey, this is in my live stream. I was like, I got a new theme team. I want to try it out. It's a Hive Bent team for those of you that might actually recognize what it is. And I was like, yo, someone want to play me? And then this guy named FatalFatalities gave me probably the best match I've had all month. There was just bunch of crazy stuff flying around. There's a lot of after turn effects in it too, which is kind of why it drags on in spots more than I need to. I figured I would just speed it up a really decent portion overall, and then if I need that time to talk about plays, I can, but if I don't, then I'll just do my best to fill it. But we'll just go ahead and roll with it, you know, why not? But I'm gonna lead with Espeon. Now, I don't really know why I led with Espeon. It wasn't exactly in my lead spot. I was like, you know, he might lead off with something else. But I decided to go for the Calm Mind, and I do have Psyshock on this thing, so it's not really that bad of a play since Psyshock does hit on the physical defensive side. I know a lot more people tend to run, you know, physically defensive Politoads, but I think that the Spec D, you know, just by itself would seem, it seems to me that it'd be a little bit higher anyway. So, you know, going for the Psyshock right there wouldn't be terrible. It'd be a little weaker, but hey. So he decided to bring in Registeel on the Psyshock. You know, it's resisted. Registeel's really good at taking hits. I do have the Hidden Power Fighting. Now, I was kind of banking on him, you know, maybe expecting me to switch, you know, not being able to do anything, and then just end up going for the Stealth Rocks and bounce him right here. Since I don't have any hazards on this team, it really relies on how carefully I can play this Espeon and, you know, when I can bounce back, what I need to, and, you know, just various things like that. But he's going to make, you know, the very safe play, decide to go into his Gengar to take the HP Fire or Fighting, whatever he thinks I have. It happened to be super effective on Registeel, but because the rain's up, he's probably going to think it's Fighting, and that's definitely the safe play for him. But I decided to go out into Scizor right now. This is especially defensive Scizor, which is why I'm pretty confident that I can take this Gengar on one-on-one if it's got, like, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, and Thunderbolt. You wouldn't really run, like, Hidden Power Fire on a rain team. So I expect to take this Focus Blast somewhat well, but he ends up critting me. Now, I was just... I really, really needed that Scizor at certain points in the game. It's my only form of priority on this team. And without it, you know, if he'd have left this Gengar in, it would have given me a lot of trouble later on in the game. But thankfully, he doesn't really suspect that I'm Scarfed, which is, you know, my main reason for bringing it in. Or maybe he just wanted this thing to die to see what move I would lock myself in on. If it happened to be the latter, that was a very good play because it let him bring in Dragonite pretty safely. And I was like, okay, I don't have anything for DD Dragonite. If he starts to set up, then I'm kind of screwed. But I see that he's a special one. That doesn't necessarily tell me if he's like a mixed one or anything like that. But I see special, and I'm like, okay, he's probably not going to have Dragon in, so I think I'm safe going to this thing. But I decided to go into Vaporeon because I'm like, you know what, I can stall out Hurricanes. I know there aren't too many of them. I can Wish Protect as much as I want. There's either like 8 or 16 with PP Max, and I feel pretty confident in being able to take them. So with that in mind, you know, he decides to switch out. I still don't really know what item he has at the moment because I haven't hit him. It turns out that he actually has leftovers, but I win a decent portion of the match thinking that he had Choice Specs. That's what I've seen on Zeds. So I decided to go for the Protect there. You know, it was really obvious, but I did, you know, why not? I didn't really have another play I was going to do. But he does suspect that I actually have Toxic, and I do want to go for it, and he bounces it right back, which is a very good play on his behalf. I don't really see Magikarp Porygon too often. I know that they can run it from time to time, but it's not really something I run into on a regular basis, you know, to be wary of Toxicing it, because that's what I would want to do. But, you know, he figures I'm going to go for the double Toxic and decides to go to Registeel, which is like, oh, whatever, you know. But the thing is that he is suspecting that I'm going to switch up because there's not a lot I can do to him. I can go for Rain Boosted Scalds, but I'm going to be losing out more in the long run because the Toxic damage is going to catch up to me. So what I decided to do is I decided to go out into Espeon, predicting him to go for the Stealth Rocks. And thankfully, I do nail it correctly on this team, and I am going to be able to get some hazards up on his side of the field, which, you know, is just going to be a really, really, really big help on Dragonite. That is what I was aiming to do, a really big bullet point on my list of things to accomplish in this match, and I got it done somewhat safely. So I decided to go into my Machamp right now as he's going to go ahead and switch out into his Dragonite. Probably not the best double switch right here, but I am going to go ahead and get out. I don't really know what kind of speed investment he's running on this Dragonite, and I'm not able to get my lefties in time, but I'm running a sub Machamp, so that, you know, it's not really too fast. If anything, I don't think it has any speed invested to it whatsoever. But I think we double switch right now. He's going to go into his Politoed as I decide to go out into my Vaporeon. Somewhat of a better round, I suppose. I can Toxic him and stay in for a little bit. But in reality, I'm just going to want to, like, you know, just go for the Toxic. Get a Wish up if I can, pass it out to something else. but in reality, there's not much business for me or him to be doing in here. He can go for the Ice Beam, and the reason he actually went for it is to stall for a turn to see what move I was going to go for, because he does run Encore on this Politoed. So he's going to trap me into the Toxic. Now, because I know beyond that he really doesn't have any business thing, and he's going to go ahead and switch out to something. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I know he's going to switch out, which is why I'm going to keep myself locked into Toxic and hopefully catch something on the switch. Since I don't really see him switching into Registeel blind, I see him, wanting to switch into something to put the pressure on me, which in an ideal situation is going to be Dragonite, because if it roosts up, not only it'll take Stealth Rock's damage upon coming in, and then the Toxic will ruin its multi-scale, which will give me a lot easier breathing room. But I nail it, thankfully, don't miss. Probably a more minor bullet point on the things I wanted to accomplish in this game as well. But it's really going to help, since I thought at that point for some reason that he still had specs, even though we're blatantly seeing lefties on the screen right now. And that kind of comes into play with a play I make later, which is a little bit stupid. I wasn't paying too much attention. But he goes for the Thunder, which is like, okay, Hurricane and Rain, that benefits. He's got Thunder, and then, since he's got lefties, he might have Roost. I'm not 100% on that. He could just be like a fully offensive one with just 4 moves. I don't know at this point. But I was like, he's still going to keep dropping Thunder, so I'm just going to go for the Disable right now because he's Specs, but he's not Specs. So, to add insult into injury, I actually end up misclicking on this next turn because both of my S moves are at the top. I do have Shadow Ball and Substitute right next to each other. And out of the corner of my eye, I make a stupid play and go for the Shadow Ball. And I was like, if I get T-Waved, this is a very big problem. But he actually ends up going for the Iron Head. I don't know if, because I mentioned that I made a misclick in the stream. If he actually did end up going for the Iron Head, on behalf of the misclick, that was really nice of him. If it wasn't, then I lucked out big time. That's all I can say. But I'm going to go for the Substitute right now and actually end up dodging the 2-wave right on time. Now, what I was aiming to do was disable the Iron Head, sub on the first turn as he went for the T-wave. But that played out a little bit differently, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go for another Substitute for no reason whatsoever. I was like, you know what, if I set up a sub and then he breaks it, then yeah, but I still had my sub, so that was a really stupid turn. But I think I decided to get out of here right now because I want to save this health for a little bit later. I want to be good to go to handle some threats because I think this is one of the fastest things on my team aside from my Scarfictini. But he decides a Thunder Wave, probably predicting me to go for the Focus Blast, so fairly nice logic on his behalf, I suppose. I do end up bringing in Machamp on it, which isn't really too big of a deal. I think I only get paralyzed twice throughout the duration of Machamp being in here. But I decided to go for a sub on the Switch. Now, I actually don't really care if he Encores me. If anything, it actually benefits me. Because he'll Encore me, I'll get some lefties, and then he'll have to break the sub, I'll have to keep going for the sub. 2 of his things are Toxic right now, so while I'm, riding out the Encore, he's taking Toxic damage, and then I'll be able to get off 1 hit as soon as I'm free. So actually pretty good move for me to be locked in on. Since, I'll be getting, 1, 2 more turns, things like that. And then here's the portion of the match where there's a lot of after-turn effects, thanks to me just, Toxic everything with my Vaporeon earlier. But he decides to bring in this Dragonite, and I have to keep going for sub, but, he has to go for Hurricane as I go for sub, and provided I don't get paralyzed, it's going to work out pretty well since the Toxic is going to stack up. Beyond that point, since Encore is fixed 3, I can go for the Stone Edge. That is what I happen to have. Been considering swapping it out for Ice Punch. Still very much on the fence about it. I have had a lot of people recommend it to me over Stone Edge. I just figure Stone Edge just because it's higher base power and it won't miss with no guard. And it does have a little bit of a higher crit hit ratio. Ice Punch is a little bit weaker, but in situations like this against times 4 pokes, it'd be nice. Not to say that a Stone Edge wouldn't do the job, but just things on paper to keep down, I suppose. But I think my Encore ended on that turn, but I decided to go for another one anyway to try to sub-stall him out. And I wasn't really paying attention. As I mentioned, I thought he still had choice specs for some reason, even though we're seeing the lefties right now. And it's because of that he's actually going to roost on a turn that I decide to sub, which, if I had been paying attention, I probably could have Dynamic Punch, predicted that, or predicting the switch in general. Even though if he switched at this point, he would have died to Stealth Rock's damage. But he goes for the roost as I go for another sub. Or I think I ended up getting paralyzed anyway, so to save face, I could have just been like, yeah, I totally went for the Dynamic Punch there. No, that turn didn't even end up mattering anyway, so I'm just kind of telling you that I did make the stupid play, but I ended up getting paralyzed, so it's no big deal. But I do try to go for the Stone Edge here. and I end up getting paralyzed again. I'm really grateful that it's behind a sub, since he can't encore me into a move right now just because I'm behind it. Now, for whatever reason, I switch out right here. Don't really understand why I did. I mean, I had a sub. I could have gone for a dynamic punch, and obviously he's going to try to break it. But I was like, you know what? Maybe he might try to go for the encore, you know, on my previous move, since I was thinking, you know, maybe he's able to encore the previous move. I don't know how mechanics work, but I can encore his encore, and then he'll be the one that has to switch out, and I'll end up on the better thing of that. But in reality, that's kind of just a far-fetched play to be making. He's more than likely going to end up trying to break the sub. But I try to go for the Psy Shock. Unfortunately, it doesn't do the job, and he's going to be able to take me out with 2 Scalds, but Toxic Damage is stacking up pretty nice. I think it actually ends up taking him out at the end of this turn or the next turn, so that benefits me pretty well. Okay, there's the end of that. So there's the end of the monsoon. I don't have any weather, but as rain is here to stay. So do what I always do, or do what you're generally supposed to do. Just bring in your Scarfer on the switch, and he brings in his Porygon too. Now, those of you guys are probably going to be wondering, you know, why did I lock myself in on Brick Break as opposed to V-Create? It is stronger, you know, despite it being in the rain. Just because I don't want the defense and special defense drops, and I do still want a set amount of damage. And he does get another crit here, which is like, oh, if I had my Scizor here, I would have been able to Swords Dance, Superpower, all that stuff. Just would have been fantastic, because that does happen to be the set I'm running. And, you know, not having the fighting move means that I really have to look out for my Machamp, because I think everything on his team at this point is weak to fighting, barring the Dragonite, which is still hanging out there, but it'll die to Stealth Rocks and some other things. But for now, I'm just Brick Breaking like a freaking idiot. I have no idea why. But I'm going to get out, go to Machamp, and Machamp is probably the MVP of this game. This guy, let me tell you about this guy. I think he stays in for the majority of the rest of the game right now. But I'm going to try to punch this thing right in the face, rather. And he goes out to Registeel, recognizes that I'm going to punch something. And, you know, he's going to sacrifice this so he can bring in his Dragonite safely. Or I think he has his Dragonite, and he has his Porygon too, and he has his Lapras. But I completely forgot about Lapras until the end. I was like, once I take out D-Knight and P2, I am totally good to go. I got to see how this, you know, plays out. So brings in Dragonite, going to take a little bit more Stealth Rocks damage, but I really need to preserve Machamp for that Porygon too, otherwise it's going to stall me out. So what I do is I bring in Victini. Unfortunately, doesn't get too much use in this game, mainly just because the rain is up, and I doubt how much you know, V-Create's going to end up doing even when it's hampered by rain. So I just use that turn to get a safe switch, rack up a little bit of toxic damage as well, and I'll bring in my Gengar. So my Gengar does happen to be faster than a decent amount of things as opposed to my paralyzed Machamp. There is a great degree of difference in speed tiers there. So take it out with a Shadow Ball. Now, if he wanted to predict it and go out to the Porygon 2, would have been a good play, but his Dragonite would have died to rocks, so he just decided to leave it in and let it die. So right now, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and go for the substitute and maybe coax him into trying to go for the Magic Coat on my predicted Disable, but I don't know his entire set right now. I know he has Magic Coat, I know he has Recover, I know he has T-Bolt. I don't remember seeing Ice Beam. I don't remember seeing a 4th move, both during the game and after the game. So I was like, maybe he has Thunderbolt and Tri-Attack or some stupid thing like that, but it's more logical that he has Thunderbolt and Ice Beam just for the Bolt Beam coverage. But I go for Focus Blast since these things happen to be more physically defensive than specially defensive. Does a good chunk. If he tries to recover it off right here, it's not really likely that he's going to end up living a Dynamic Punch. And if he does, I'll end up getting the Confusion and things, and it will just be good. So I deliver a strong punch right to his face and just end up taking it out. So things that are weak to fighting are dying to a fighting type, and it's wonderful. And I got all my Paralysis bad luck out of the way. But in comes this Lapras, which I completely forgot about. And I'm at a range of health where I don't know if I can take a stab water hit from it, but it turns out that he's actually physical, and it's because of that I'm actually able to squeak out the very narrow 1-0 victory, especially at the end right there where he could have paraflinched me with Waterfall or the Paralysis. So that's going to lead me the game, guys. I definitely had a lot of fun with it, looking back on it. The instant I took it, I was like, I got to show this to everybody on PokeMoshPit. So I really hope you enjoyed it. It's probably one of the longer games I've had on this channel. So if you were able to sit through it and you enjoyed it, you're welcome to leave a like, rating, comment, subscribe, do your thing. Both of our links will be in the description. You're more than welcome to click those. And that'll do it out of me, guys. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you later.